Looking back at these, from the start of the period, fellas, I gave you 1, 2, 3. These are the shortcut ones. And that one, which involves us to do 2 steps, FOIL, that's what we should have got. So let's have a look at these answers. It's about recognizing which is which. Question number 1 has that squared thing, which means x minus 4 squared is like having x minus 4, and because there's x's in the front, we should be able to get straight to the answer, which is double the middle guy, and negative 4 squared sends us straight to the answer, x squared minus 8x plus 16. There it is. No working. That's how we deal with squared ones. It's called a perfect square. If you want to write it out and do it using FOIL, that's great, but I expect you all to be able to do that. No working, 1 step, end of story. Put up your hand if you got it right. Question number 2. Straight away, question number 2's got a 2 in the front. It's also got a 3x and a 4x. It is not of any sort of simple style, so we're going to use FOIL. First outer inner last, 2 lots of 4x. I'll put the arrows in even. 2 lots of 4x is 8x. Outer, 2 lots of 1. Inner, negative 3x times 4x, negative 12x squared. Last, negative 3x times 1, negative 3x. There's our first line of working. Of course, we collect like terms because, of course, there will be like terms. We don't have to write them in any particular order, but generally we'd write them, well, there's actually 2 ways. We'd write the x squareds, the x's and the numbers in that order. But sometimes because our x squareds are negative, we would write them not necessarily first, just because it's tidy, but most of that is just really of no relevance. So let's just collect all the x's. We have 8x, negative 3x is 5x. We have a 2, and we have negative 12x squared. And if you wrote that, or any other combination, i.e. the 2 at the front, the 5x in the middle, and the negative 12x there, or any other order, as long as you've got the 3 things, then you're right. Put up your hand if you use FOIL correctly for number 2. 99% of you, maybe less, because there's only 20-something. Anyway, now, third question. This one, very straightforward, difference of 2 squares because it's got the x plus something, or x minus something, and x plus something. So it must be difference of 2 squares. Answer, x squared minus 11 squared is 121. That should have taken, as I say, about the time it took me to write the question. You just write the answer straight down. Question number 4. Question number 4, gentlemen, again, because there's x at the front, then we don't have to use FOIL because we know that the answer is going to be of the format x squared. We add together the 7 and negative 4. We subtract, multiply to get the final number, which is negative 28. Add the numbers to give that. Multiply the numbers to get that. Just like we've done all along. Last question. 4x and 5x, clearly FOIL is required here to do it carefully. 4 5s are 20, x squared. Negative 4x when we do the outer one, so we've done that for the 20, x squared, that for the negative 4. Now we go 1 times 5x is 5x, and 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. So there's our first line. There's our 4 multiplications, FOIL, first out and the last. And we end up with negative 4x plus 5x is positive 1x. And that is it. You always simplify. Always simplify. Now, Put up your hand quickly if you've got 5 out of 5. Who got 4 or 5? 4 or 5? 4 or 5? 4 or 5, because I could forgive maybe one minor error here, but not 2. 4 or 5. If you got your hand up for 4 or 5, that's okay. No, I don't think so. Okay. This is where we leave algebra briefly. We leave algebra and have a look at the last bit of number. This term there's a common test which has got number and algebra in it. There's a little bit of number to go, not very much. And I'm just going to very, very quickly, in the last 2 minutes, tell you about that. In fact, if you can quickly find. If you find in your textbook, please, page 28, we're looking at ratio versus rate. Ratio versus rate. Page 28, ratio versus rate. Tomorrow's period, we're going to complete ratio and rate. And on page 28 is the start of the rate section. Ratio, sorry. Yeah, I'm going to kill anyone who carries on that little sort of drumming thing with your pens. Seriously kill you and all of your family, in fact. Okay? Now, so this is what we're going to look at. Ratio on page 28. Ratio is when we compare things that have the same units. For instance, we're going to mix up some chemicals, and it says mix 1 to 9. 1 lot of chemicals, 9 water. Or you make petrol, 2-stroke petrol, and you mix up like 25, 1 to 25. 1 tiny little bit of oil, whole lot of petrol, makes 2-stroke mixture or whatever. So that's ratio. Okay, it's very much like fractions. Rate is when we compare things which have different units, like the distance you've travelled in a certain time. My car tells me my average speed, okay, which normally is about getting from here to my house is about 30 k's an hour in rush hour, because I'm sitting there in, it's only 5 k's. 5 k's in 25 minutes is a fairly low speed, isn't it? Average speed. So the point is, rate compares 2 different things. In this case, distance with time, otherwise known as speed. Those 2 things compared are a rate as opposed to ratio. That's the fundamental difference between the 2 things. We will be looking at this from page 28 on tomorrow, on Friday. Now, the only thing I want you to do is all log into this website tonight sometime, please. And you go to www.worldmathsday.com. Now, worldmathsday.com, I'm not going to tell you much about it right now, but worldmathsday.com is run by, well, the machine behind World Maths Day, the website stuff is run by Mathletics. You can sign in. It says there is 10 hours to go. You sign in with your normal Mathletics username and password. Any questions or whatever that you answer go towards the New Zealand tally. That's a sort of a worldwide competition. Which country can answer the most questions? Clearly disadvantaging countries like us with hardly any people compared to like the US and places. But that aside, log in through the normal, using your normal Mathletics password, check it out, have a sort of a 15-20 minute play with it, maybe answer the odd question or whatever, but just check it out. And correct. And today is World Science Day, I think, but this is the end of sort of, I think it's 2 or 3 days of this particular thing. So there it is. Day 3 is on. World Science Day. It's got there at the top. Just check that out, please.